Hi, it's Peggy at Headshots by Peggy, and today I've got John Swan back with us, and we are doing camera tips for actors. All right, John. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Camera tips for actors, like you just said. Um, well, I'm sort of intrigued by a recent change I've made to the sessions that I run. I keep trying to get them to run more like a working set, and I always think of them as like a cinematic jam session. You know, less a class, more like a working set, more like a jam session. So I made a slight change in how I do it now, where I sort of the actors come into the session, and they've got whatever material they have, and we do 3 rounds on camera. So the actors get on camera 3 times. I know there are a lot of places where they don't even get on camera once per week, but I like them on camera as soon as they walk in the room, basically, and we're just on camera the whole time. So they're on camera for 1 round where it's the cinematic round where I just basically talk to them about things that make actors look real on camera, and it's the opposite of what actors think make them look real on camera. So I'm saying things like, don't drive the scene so much, don't play so many moments, don't add so much inflection to the lines, um, talk more quietly, those kind of things. All the things, not the creative things so much as the cinematic things. And we do that round first, and then we do the work round, which is the creative stuff, character and emotion and all that stuff. And then we come back around and do a third round, which is sort of a final takes round. So now I've got them on camera 3 times during the day, and we're building takes over the course of the day. And the reason I bring it up, since we're talking to actors and trying to advise actors, is that first round I've I'm I've I've learned now is is what makes is what makes the day, and what makes their takes. And it's something actors really need to wrap their heads around, because they're taught to drive scenes, they're taught to make lines really important, they're taught to play moments, they're taught to put energy into the scene. Um, all of these things which make them look fake on camera. Quite honestly, it makes them look fake on camera. They look completely unbelievable on camera. So, those are I'm learning are the most important things, because all of the creative work, the character work, the emotional work, all that the wonderful stuff doesn't matter at all if the actors are not real and believable and natural on camera. And of course, they all want to be real and believable and natural, but they think that the way to get there is by doing the things they learned in acting class, and it's the exact opposite. And go ahead, were you going to say something?
Well, it's funny that you say that. I'm on Clubhouse, and I have a room talking about self tapes, headshots, and other industry chat. I do it every Tuesday morning and every Thursday afternoon. And just today, there was a actor in there, and he's a cop. He's a police officer, and he's starting to act, or he's left the force and he's starting to act whatever. But he was making the comment that he's auditioned for a lot of police officers, and he never gets, he never books anything. And we got to talking, and he's like, yeah, I always try to make it pop, and I'm trained in martial arts, and I do this and I do. And it's like, no, you just be a police officer. Like, that's his craving to book the role and be this TV police officer. He's over exaggerating everything and trying to look cool, when what they're looking for is just somebody that's you know driver's license and registration, please. Something that
Right.
simple. And that's a great point. And it's funny that you said that, because that was just what we were talking about in the Clubhouse, was just be real. Like, when you act, you look like you're acting. The camera knows. We talk about this all the time. The camera catches your emotions. The camera catches, and if you're like trying to kind of ham it up, like the camera sees that absolutely.
And I'm sure there are a lot of actors who are saying, well, he shouldn't be trying to ham it up, but I'll bet if I put them on camera, they're moving too much, they're playing too many moments, they're trying to make all the lines really important. So it's not just him, like you said. I mean, he'd do a lot better just to stand still and,
Yeah,
like you said, give a ticket. But
yeah,
he's not the only
exactly.
one. It's the biggest thing that gets in their way, because casting directors will um, watch self tapes a lot of times with the volume muted. And if they see too much of that energy and movement, but then certainly even with the volumes not muted, if you're just doing too much with the lines, when I show actors what they need to do to be real on camera, it's really challenging at first for them because they say it feels terrible. It feels terrible, and they learned from their acting class how it's supposed to feel, or at least how they're told it's supposed to feel, and all the things they're told about how it's supposed to feel end up looking fake on camera, and nobody forgives it. Nobody forgives it. Nobody's going to hire them and say, we'll fix them on set, we'll show them how to do that. If you don't have that, nobody's going to pay attention to your character or your emotion or anything else you've created. It's like the first line that you have to get past. Um,
Yeah, that's it's very noticeable, and a lot of it comes with nerves. So you have to, know your character. You have to know, and be comfortable and be prepared for anything that's going to come up in the audition, because when you start getting nervous, then you get those extra oh, I've got to do this, and you're thinking about what you're like, how do I you're thinking more about how you look on camera than just thinking about being you and letting the camera see you as that particular character.
yes, I know what you mean about nerves. I'm gonna push back a little, disagree a little bit. I don't think it's nerves as much as it is they're taught to do that. It's
Yeah.
what they're taught to do in acting class. They're taught to make every line important. They're taught to react on every line. They're taught to be naturalistic. They're taught to put energy into the scene, and and that may work for their acting class or maybe theater. Although I could contest that as well. It's really what they're taught to do. So they're just doing what they think they're supposed to do. They're doing what they're taught to do, and it's the biggest reason why they're not where they are. They're not at the level, whatever the next level is they want to be at. It's probably the biggest reason why. So I'm not saying, well, it doesn't work on camera. So they have to realize it's a different medium.
And you and I have talked about this a lot. When you go to school to learn something, you learn the formulas, you learn the things, but you don't actually take that schooling, and it never works in the real world. You don't apply that when you get your job or whatever. It's always, okay, this is what I was taught. And so this is how I can apply that formula to this. But actors want to take class and just like plop it down in front of the camera and do exactly what they were taught in class, instead of, okay, now that I learned these methods to feel this and to, do all this, now I'm going to take and that's what you really, I think that's what you say is, yeah, it's great. You went to acting school, you had acting class, you learned these principles, you learned these techniques. That's great. But in front of the camera, it's not going to work. It's not going to interpret that way. So it's important to understand that. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people miss. And I know that you basically stand on the mountains and shout it, every time I talk to you, you say the same thing. And it's because it's so important, and actors need to get that turn, you know.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. And I think you've heard me say this before. The 7 words they've never heard in any acting class are, and here's why it works on camera. Their acting process is brilliant. I'm not saying it, I'm saying it's a brilliant process, but you just need to know how to use it on camera. And their acting classes don't show them that. Their acting classes tell them, just do what you do and the director will fix it. So So that's got to be the big takeaway from the day. And the camera won't. You just have to submit. The camera won't forgive it. Nobody forgives it. Um, we just have to see that you can think that way. Um, and we can end this portion on this if you want, which is they need to start watching film and television with the volume muted. And what they learn if they watch film and television with the volume muted, and I dare them to do it tonight, um, when they watch it with the volume muted, they're going to say, oh my gosh, those people aren't doing anything. They're playing very little. They're not doing anything. It's all internal, but they're not doing anything. And if they were to do that, they would be shocked. They would be shocked by the fact that nobody's doing anything. They're feeling and thinking a great deal, but they're not doing anything. Have you seen the show The Queen's Gambit?
Yes.
Okay, so this will be relevant because it's pretty it's still pretty everyone's still talking about it. That actress Anya Taylor Joy did a movie called Thoroughbreds a few years ago, and she does nothing. I mean, literally does nothing. And Thoroughbreds made her a big enough actress that she could get the Queen's Gambit. And if you watch her in the Queen's Gambit, she does nothing for the entire series. Nothing. She thinks and feels a great deal. She does nothing. And that now made her an international star. So, and this is one of the reasons I'll caution, our actors listening. It's one of the reasons why they will go with an actor who has more experience versus a newer actor, because the actor with more experience understands what they can and cannot do on set, and they'll be less inclined to take their chance on a newer actor because it's hard to convince actors of what we're talking about. And actors that sort of have more experience on set, or I have a feeling she sort of grew up in the industry and grew up on sets, and they tend to just get it naturally. But she's a good example of that idea we're talking about.
All right, here's this week's assignment. Go, I think it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix, right? And watch this volume off and leave comments what you were most impressed by or what it meant for you. So go watch this volume off and then leave comments. And then go, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it volumes on because it's a really good, it's a very good miniseries. Yeah.
You only have to watch 5 minutes of it volume off, and if they watch it with the volume muted or not, and they disagree with me and can prove it to me, I'll give them a year of free camera lessons, free acting lessons. I'll give them a whole year. If they can come to me, I actually make this challenge all the time. I'll say, if somebody can come to me with one piece of footage from any movie or TV show that we all know, and where actors are playing beats and moments and transitions and moments and reacting all the time the way actors are taught, if they can show me one clip, I'll give them free acting lessons for a year. And I know that they can't do it because that film doesn't exist, because if it existed, we couldn't edit the film together. I knew a script supervisor who used to go up to the actors during the shoot and say, if you keep moving like that, they're going to cut you out of the show, or they're going to cut you out of the movie. They have to, otherwise it's like an emotional jump cut. So that's why I can make that challenge, knowing there's no piece of footage they can show me where it has all of those things they were taught to do in acting class, because it doesn't exist. So that's my challenge.
That's good. That's some good. So there's your challenge. So leave comments. You know, tell us how this how this changed your mindset. Like watch it, turn the volume off, and really put a comment in like what you gathered from that or what you felt from that. So I'm interested to hear the comments.
Me too. Now the other thing is, the flip side of that is, when it comes to creating their characters, they can create huge characters as long as their delivery is so minimalistic, let's say, as we're saying. And then they can get away with huge characters. When I work with actors, they'll think their delivery should be bigger than it is, but they'll think their character should be smaller than it is, and they'll say to me, "I didn't want to play anything too big because I didn't want to be fake and over the top." And that's when they should create something really big. And only by having a delivery system that is so minimalistic can they get away with playing huge characters. But then they can get away with playing huge characters that'll be really vivid and really pop. Um, and and as long as they underplay them, like we're talking about,
Yeah.
then they can play huge characters, big choices, big emotions, big characters, and then the two of them work against each other. What you're creating is really big, and how you're playing it is really small. Those two things work against each other, and that's what makes something magical on camera. That's what makes it cinematic on camera. So I'm telling you, go crazy with the creating and the emotion and all of that stuff. Go crazy, make it mountainous, but then you play against it, and that friction is how it works on camera. Creating something big, playing something small. Um,
That's awesome. So what actor tip or quote do you have for us today?
well, I published this just on Saturday in anticipation of my sessions and our talk. Um, you are more interesting on camera when your character is thinking about the story while you're playing the scene. So we talked about they have to be very minimalistic with their presentation and the delivery, and they want to create very big. When you're making a choice for how to play the scene, and this is just understanding how the camera thinks, and you of course know this, um, actors will tend to, they get a scene and they play the scene just the way it's written. And they don't think about the story. So the tip is you're more interesting on camera when your character's thinking about the story while you are playing the scene. And my example of that is, let's say there's a story about a couple and they're getting a divorce. Woman, man, woman, woman, man, man, doesn't matter. There's a couple, they're getting a divorce. That's the story. In the middle of that story, there's a scene where one of them goes into a coffee shop, strikes up a conversation with a stranger, and there's a little mild flirtation going on. The stranger's hitting on the person who's in the middle of a divorce but doesn't know it, but they're hitting on them, so there's a mild flirtation. That's how the scene is going to be written. But while that character is in a mild flirtation with a stranger, of course they're going to be thinking about, I'm getting a divorce. They're going to be thinking about it all the time. So they're in a scene, and the scene's about this mild flirtation, and that's all the dialogue is a mild flirtation, and that's all actors are going to play, is the flirtation. When they should be playing the character should be thinking about the divorce while they're playing the scene. And then they're going to look like they belong in a movie, which is the point of an audition. The point of an audition is to make it look like you belong in a movie already. So if here's the scene, really wonderful scene written by a wonderful writer, and a wonderful actor comes along, let's say it's our flirtation scene, and they play the flirtation scene. Well, that's flat and one dimensional. If we have the flirtation scene and the actor comes along and plays the divorce while the flirtation scene is happening, now we have something three-dimensional. And so it'll look like a movie. A lot of times they're actors who are even minimalistic the way we're talking about in their delivery, but because they're only thinking about the scene, they look flat and one-dimensional. They look good, but they look uninteresting. And if your character's thinking about the story while you're in the middle of a scene, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to look more three-dimensional on camera. You're going to look more like you belong in a movie. Now, if they're shooting a TV series or a movie, that tends to come naturally because you've been experiencing the whole series leading up to this particular episode, or you've been experiencing the whole movie leading up to this part of the movie. So you've got the story with you. And I hope that's what's happening anyway. They've got the story with you, so it naturally, the scene plays that way. If they're going in for an audition, they don't have the experience of all of the story leading up to the scene that's the audition. So they just play the scene the way it's written. and they're taught in acting class to just play the scene the way it's written. So they will look flat and one dimensional. All they have to do is think of the bigger story. That's all they have to do is think of the bigger story um, while they're in the middle of the scene. They're not taught to do that, but if they did that, they'd look more like they belong in a movie. So that was the tip that I published on Saturday. And that,
And I can attest to that even as a headshot photographer. That's why when I'm doing headshots, I'm, we're creating a story um, to get that emotion out, because otherwise, if an actor's just in their head going, do I look pretty? Do I look, is this my good side? Like that's what the camera is going to capture. But if they're like in a scene and they're in character and they've got those emotions going on, then that's what the camera is going to capture. And I built a business on you know getting getting that emotion and capturing that emotion. So even though it's different in the headshot because you're right at the lens, you're not, in front of a motion camera, but it's still the same principles. And the camera does catch, we talk about all the time, that camera sees those emotions. It sees those little tiny macro expressions that you make, just those little tiny things. The camera picks up. The camera, you can't lie to the camera.
right. You can't lie to it. You can't outwit it. Um, yeah, and it's interesting because if you were to take a headshot of someone and like you said, all they were thinking about was how do I look in the headshot, they're going to be flat. If they're
Hmm.
thinking about it, but you give them story ideas. And if
Yeah,
they can be thinking about the story ideas while they're in the headshot, of course they're going to, it gives the actor both what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, it gives them what I call movie eyes. It gives them those eyes that make it look like they're already in a movie.
and that's what they want to say pops. You want my headshot to pop. Well, that's what that is. Does the character just come out of you? Does that character just emerge naturally without thinking about it, in your eyes, in your expression, in the little tilt of your eye, the half grin, whatever it is, that little tiny expression, is it there? That's what pops, is like, hey, I'm in this scene. I'm this character.
Um, you need to tell them when they're finishing their headshot session, okay, it doesn't end here. You take this idea we did today and you take it into your auditions, because what happens usually is you give them a great headshot with their eyes that are popping and they look like they have all that going on in their eyes, and then they go off to the audition and they don't think that way. And so they end up sort of more flat and one dimensional, and the director or casting director says, huh, doesn't look like the headshot, doesn't have that thing the headshot had. And they called them in for that thing that you, Peggy, created with them. And that's what they want to see. They want to see in their performance that thing that you, Peggy, created. Um,
Absolutely. And that must have been my Amazon package being delivered. um, but when they say you need to look like your headshots, um, they don't necessarily mean your hair has to be the same, your makeup. I mean, yes, they want that general feel, but the main thing is they want that energy, the energy that headshot has. That's what you need to come into the audition with, that same emotion. And that's exactly what you said.
I
Bring
can,
that into the audition.
yeah, I can promise them that happens a lot when their headshot gets them called in, and then the casting director
And then
says,
they come in flat.
yeah, the casting director says doesn't look like, and like you said, they're not talking about color of hair. They don't have that same thing going on, and that thing is what you got by talking about whatever the story is.
Maybe somebody's actually here. I guess I'm going to have to see who's at my door.
That's okay. You see who the door. I'll keep talking. I wonder if she's going to keep this in. So let's see. If she keeps it in, then here's what I want you to know. Another thing that I published on Facebook this week was uh, um, on camera. I don't even remember what it was. Talk, talk with your voice and not your face. That's right. On camera, talk with your voice and not your face. I'm still talking to your audience.
Oh, you're still, oh, cool. Then I won't have to even cut this.
I gave them
Just
another.
keep
You can
going.
go. You can go make a sandwich. Um, I was giving them another tip. The tip is that I published last week on camera. talk with your voice and not your face.
I was being funny and I drooled water all down my front. Carry on, John, carry on.
That was it. That was the tip. On camera, talk with your voice and not your face. And it's amazing how much they move their faces on camera. The poet Emerson said, I can't understand what you're saying because your body's making so much noise. And that's what happens with their faces. They don't, those we all love in the movies when the actor just looks almost, they look, it looks like a portrait almost. And the actor has those really cool, oh, and see, now I get a ding of my mail. They have the really cool eyes and it looks like this like cinematic portrait, like something really beautiful. Um, but I'll see it when I'll be working with actors and they can, everything going on is great, but their face is sort of just, it's kind of like moving too much. And they don't
Yeah.
realize that they're communicating most of the story through the eyes. So for instance, you and I are talking now, I'm not thinking about my eyes, but if I was in a movie, well, now I need to talk to you like this. And I don't know if you can probably even see it, but I've just made a change with my presentation on camera so that I'm trying to tell the story through my eyes and less naturalistically. And that alone can make a difference in their callback rate. Um, because they're playing the scene and they're being very naturalistic, and it gets in the way of the cinematic. Naturalism does not work on camera, and they love naturalism. So
Yeah.
talk with your voice and not your face. That was that one.
Talk with your voice and not your face.
That was that one.
As someone who's very expressive and not an actor, but I totally know what you mean,
We would have
if
to
that makes sense.
we would have to well, they put the expression, into their face, and they should just, it's like music. This is the way I think of it. It's like music. Actually, I always think of it as like dance, and more specifically ballet. And I think of it as poetry. Being on camera, acting in the film frame, it's like ballet, motor. It's like ballet, it's like poetry, and it's like singing. And what I mean when I say it's like singing is the emotion you feel is the music, and the music just fills the lyrics and then carries the lyrics to whomever's listening to the song. But when we sing, we don't do a lot with we don't do a lot with the lines, with the lyrics. We have the intense emotion that we're feeling, and we let it fill the lyrics, and then carry the lyrics where they're going to go. Um, but actors don't think that way. They don't think that way on camera. It's much more like music than it is like acting. Honestly, it's much more like ballet than it is like acting, in terms of the way they're taught acting is.
Yeah, that's 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 really good points. It's really good. I love that. I love it.
It's an art form.
It is.
It's an art form.
It, communication, um, it's communication. It's being able to communicate in an artistic way, um, that comes across very realistic.
Right.
Someone said, I can't remember who said it, but I heard it recently, um, and it was that communication, you're not communicating if the other person's not understanding what's going on. So, I may think, oh, I'm a great communicator, but if the person whose message I'm trying to, get the message to isn't understanding me, that I'm not a good communicator. And the same with acting, like you have to be a good communicator and bring that off naturally, because you may think, oh, I'm doing this just like the class, but the camera's not picking it up, then you're not doing it right. You're not getting those points across. It's not
Now,
coming across real.
one of the things I tell actors is remember what you do on Instagram. You're on Instagram, you're taking a picture, you're doing a video, and you're not moving all over the place. Your voice isn't all over the place. You're making sure the camera can capture your eyes. You're doing something very specific that's not at all like you do in life. You are communicating to a camera, and you're communicating on camera. And then I get these actors who, I put them on camera, or they get on camera, even if it's not with me, they get on camera, and they forget those very things that work so brilliantly on Instagram, which is just a camera. It's all it is, but the principles are the same. So don't feel like, oh well, that's just Instagram. It's not art. It's not acting. But the camera is the camera is the camera, and they'll create something very cinematic on Instagram and then forget to do it when they're acting.
Yep. And you want your audition to be better than your real post on Instagram or your TikTok. If your TikTok or your Instagram is better than your audition, then there's a problem. And that's what are you doing? That's good.
Right. That's right. That's right. There's a little bit of a problem. It can be more artistic than Instagram, of course, in terms of the substance. No one's saying that, but the medium is the same. It's a camera. And I know that there are agencies and production companies that have people on staff whose job it is to scour social media. And they're looking for actors on social media. And they're not looking for the truth and the substance of your message. They're looking for how are you on camera? Did you create a character that's interesting? Sure, but how are you on camera? Do
Uh-huh.
you look like you belong on camera? So they already have it within them because they do it all the time on social media. They just need
Yeah.
to apply. They just need to apply it to their meaningful, substantial, artistic, you know, substance that they always think about. And if
Yeah.
they don't do it, then all of that substance they want their acting to have, it's going to get lost in the expression of the substance. All you and I are talking about is the expression. And all of that, they want their work to be meaningful and substantial. It will be as long as they think like the camera, as I say, as long as they think like the camera. And if they don't, I don't care how meaningful and substantial it is, it's going to get lost.
Absolutely.
The camera is what carries it to the audience. The camera is like the ambassador, and it's what carries it to the audience. And if they don't think like the camera, all of that substance and that art and that truth they like to create, and they get completely lost. But if they embrace it, their art and their truth and their substance will be brilliant.
So I think there's so much going on since the shutdown, the pandemic, so much going on with the Zoom classes. And even I feel like that my weekly show, I think we go a lot deeper. Like every week it's like deeper and deeper. We really are, there's some good stuff here. And I think if people really listen to this and go out and apply what you're saying, they're going to realize really quick, like same day, like let me just try this, let me apply what he's saying and put this on camera. They're going to see this. And if they're doing their self tapes every day and, working on their craft every day, and they start applying this, they're going to be seeing a huge change when they play those tapes back, and they're going to see exactly what we're talking about and how the camera picks up on the the quiet, the small, the emotion.
It's what the two of us are talking about and other people talk about as well. And it will absolutely change wherever they are with their career. It'll absolutely change and take them to the next level.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, and you and
Well,
I,
again, John, go ahead, go ahead.
I just was going to say, and this will be the last thing. Casting directors say this kind of a thing all the time. They always the one thing casting directors have in common is they all say throw it away to actors. Throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. Actors are taught to hang on to something and make it important. And if you get them to throw it away, they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not actually doing anything with the moment, whatever. But every casting director I've ever met is always saying to actors, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. So if you don't take our word for it, take the casting director's word
And if you don't want to take the casting director's word for it, then don't worry because you're not going to be working.
for it.
You're not going to be calling yourself a working actor. You're going to be going to class after class after class, going, well, I don't know why I'm not getting any auditions. I don't know why I'm not booking anything. I don't know why. And we're telling you why, because you need to throw it away.
You have the power. You have the power.
Yeah. I feel like everybody that watches this series is an actor. They're serious about their career. They want to learn. So, take this. I challenge you to leave us comments and tell us. tell us what you like, what you, first of all, what you felt and what you discovered when you listened to that on mute. And then second, how you saw the difference when you filmed yourself in a scene. And look at it, do it the way you think you should do it, the way you're always been doing it, and then do it the way that John's been explaining, and film that both ways, and then look at them, and then tell us. You can even attach, if they're a few seconds, attach it to the comments, but show us the difference and tell us your experience, because I guarantee you're going to see a difference. Because I even use this principle when I'm doing corporate headshots, not even with actors. I tell, corporate business people, okay, so, you're an attorney. So like, what's your favorite thing? And what's your favorite part of your job? And I get them in that confident place, and take their headshot. So this works. It's a principle. It's like, if you drop an apple, it's going to fall to the ground. This is just a principle. It's the way it works. It's going to work in every situation.
Yes, it is.
Well, John, what do you want to close this out with? You got anything to close it out with? Take us out with a joke. You haven't told us a joke in a couple of months.
Okay, I'll tell you a joke. Now you have to realize some of my jokes are they're 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 meant to be funny. I'm not actually trying to make fun of actors. I'm just saying it's supposed to make you think. And since we talked about all of the ways to be believable, I'll end with this joke. Two actors at a coffee shop. Stop me if I've told this. Two actors at a coffee shop. One actor says, "How was your audition?" And the other actor says, "Great. The director said my reading was unbelievable."
I get it.
Have I told that one already? Because I can tell
I
them.
think you have.
Oh, all right.
I think you have.
I'll come with a fresh one next time.
But it was still a good one, and it matched up with exactly what we were talking about. It's right. Unbelievable. Need to be believable. Throw it away. Don't move so much. Everything that he said, I agree with. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. And I'm serious. You've got assignments this month. John's, it's a short month because somehow we didn't make it on the 1st of February. So John will be back in a couple of weeks. So you have a couple of weeks to do this, and leave us all these comments, and maybe we'll kind of go over some of them and, see what exciting things come out of that. So make sure that you share this with everyone you know, leave us tons of comments, and most importantly, have an amazing day. I'll see you next week.
Yes, and if they don't come for the wisdom, come for the jokes. I'll have a new joke next time in a few weeks.
John promises new jokes.
Promise, a new joke.
Text or call today so that we can get you effective headshots that you can use as part of your marketing strategy. Headshots by Peggy, how can I help you?